佢哋大家都有。係。
Yes, Mr. Chen Kem-lam. Mr. Gary Fang. First of all, may I welcome you to the 10th open hearing of the Select Committee to inquire into the background and reasons for the delay of the construction of the Hong Kong section of the Guangzhou-Shenzhen-Hong Kong Express Rail Link. Giving evidence to the Select Committee today, we have two witnesses, Dr. Philco Wong, Projects Director of the MTR Corporation Limited, and Mr. Mark Lomas, Projects Manager, Technical Support of the MTRCL. The Select Committees agree that Dr. Wong and Mr. Lomas are, upon their request, to be accompanied by the following persons at the hearing. They are Mr. David Basin, appointed legal advisor of the MTRCL. Second one is Mr. Bao Wei-ming, Principal Legal Advisor of the MTRCL. And the third one is Ms. So Man Kit, Deputy General Manager, Projects and Property Communications. Fourth one is Ms. Wong Mei Kay, Corporate Affairs Principal Advisor of the MTRCL, and Mr. Mkawa, Coordination Manager, Express Rail. Please note that those accompanying the two witnesses may not address the Select Committee. If I may remind the witnesses, this Select Committee has not been empowered to exercise powers under the Legislative Council Powers and Privileges Ordinance Cap 382. So witnesses are not protected by the privileges given under Cap 382. In the course of inquiry, in accordance with Section 18 of Cap 382, on key questions in relation to the inquiry, if witnesses can intentionally give a false answer or give misrepresentation or forged documents, that is a criminal offense. I'm sure the witnesses will be honestly assisting the work of this Select Committee. The committee has established its own practice and procedure. If I may remind you of a number of points. First of all, Cap 382 states that there are powers and privileges enjoyed by members. They apply only to the inquiry. For all members, including non-Select Committee members, should refrain from commenting on the inquiry outside of the inquiry. If I may also take this opportunity to remind those on the public gallery and the media, for a disclosure of evidence given in the inquiry. If this disclosure is made outside inquiry, it is not protected by Cap 382. So if necessary, you may wish to seek your legal advice on your legal liabilities. Later on in the inquiry, I will ask the witness to confirm the witness statements produced and to produce this witness statements as evidence. This will then be uploaded to the electrical website for public inspection. It is now time, and we have a quorum. I declare the inquiry open. The first point, if I may first clarify one point. Dr. Philco Wong, on the 18th of November 2015, you submitted a witness statement in English to the clerk to the Select Committee. And then on the 20th of November 2015, you submitted a Chinese version of the same statement. That is paper number W15-C. Dr. Wong, do you now formally produce the witness statement as evidence to the Select Committee? Yes, I do. May I ask you, for the English version, the signature, that's Philco Wong Lai Keung. In the Chinese version, the signature is Wong Waimin. Can you confirm they are the same person? Yes. Thank you. The second point I'd like to clarify is that Mr. Lomas, you have not submitted any witness statement to the Select Committee, correct? Can you give the reasons?
Decided that the statement made by Dr. Philco Wong would suffice for the both of us.
So do you take it that is a common witness statement then?
Of the witness statement, but I have nothing to add to the witness statement made by Dr. Wong.
Okay.
So you are now confirming that Dr. Philco Wong's witness statement, or you confirm the content of the witness statement of Dr. Philco Wong, is that the case? Do you agree?
The content.
Okay. Okay, Wang Weiming 博士，呢？
Okay, Dr. Philco Wong, on the 11th of November 2015, you submitted a witness statement to the Select Committee. You have already produced it as evidence to the Select Committee for the benefit of those in the public area and the media to follow the proceedings. Upon their request, we will make public your witness statement to them. On the witness statement you've just submitted, do you have anything to add now? Yes, I do. Can you start now, Mr. Chairman? I would like to make an address. Mr. Chairman, members, thank you for giving me the opportunity to make a short speech. The Hong Kong session of the Guangzhou-Shenzhen-Hong Express Rail Link, the XRL, it is an important infrastructure project for Hong Kong. On the progress of the project, I understand members of the public and this council are very much concerned about it. In response to members' questions, I would like to report quickly the latest progress of the project. The project is now more than 75% completed. It is in line with the completion target for the third quarter of 2018. As for the 26-kilometer underground tunnel, it's been borne through last week. This is an important milestone for the project. Engineering staff are now laying tracks and overhead cables inside the tunnel. They are also taking forward the signaling and the communication system installation. On the West Kowloon terminus, the whole project is almost 64% completed. For the station entrance building, the steel structure, fabrication and installation are now taking shape, and then the temporary structure installation is over 90% completed. The design of the WKT adopts a green and people-based theme. We want to provide comfortable station environment for passengers. At the same time, we want it to become a landmark in West Kowloon. So this WKT takes up 11 hectares of land. All the platform facilities are underground, so that we could free up more above-ground space. After completion, there will be over 3 hectares of green space. This will be the main green space in West Kowloon in the future. It will be a great place for people to go and enjoy themselves. I'm sure you understand we are talking about a huge station being put underground, this is a very complex project with high technical requirements. Apart from the fact that the WKT is underground, for the entire section of the XRL Hong Kong section is also underground in tunnels. All the underground alignment would help to lessen the impact on the environment, and also because West Kowloon is a developed area. That's why, as we carry out the works, we have to consider minimizing the impact on the local community and traffic. And during works, the works team often encountered unexpected difficulties. So for the already complicated project, it becomes even more complicated. But then the works team tried its best to overcome all the obstacles so that we could take forward the project. As Mr. Lincoln Leung, the Chief Executive Officer, said in his statement, there are many reasons causing the delay to the XRL project. There are complex geological conditions, more complex than expected. There's a delay in getting into work sites, and also of the complicated underground facilities and labor shortage in Hong Kong. Labor shortage continues to affect the progress of the XRL project. In the second independent board committee report of the MTRCL, is mentioned that the MTRCL is now carrying out works on 5 new railway lines. There's an average shortage of labor of about 20%. As we move into building facilities, installation, and move towards completion, we need skilled workers and technical staff, especially E&M staff, and there is a serious shortage of such workers. So the problem is expected to continue, and we still need to overcome these challenges. As the project manager, the MTRCL has always tried its utmost to complete the project in line with the program. We've worked closely with contractors, and where there's any delay, we have put in place suitable recovery measures. At the beginning of the project, the works team has already put in place a series of recovery measures. I could give you 1 or 2 examples. For the Nam Cheong Foundation Reciting Project, contract 802, there was a delay of some 21 months because we needed to remove 300 deformed H-piles. It seems that the H-piles were deformed at the time when they were bored into the ground, and this could not have been foreseen. So the usual pile removal methods could not be used. That's why the MTRCL and the contractor adopted the rotator and wedge method. This is a highly complex process, and the relevant recovery measures like sequencing the works, adding more machineries, and so on. At the end, the works team was able to catch up with the original program. As for the WKT Approach Channel South, contract number 811B, because in underground Jordan Road, there was a delay of the construction of the diaphragm wall for 6 months. So we added an additional phase for the temporary traffic management scheme. We moved Jordan Road to the south so that the remaining diaphragm wall construction could proceed on schedule. And then for the WKT contract 810A, this is the most challenging contract for the WKT. The northern structure has to be built with a top-down approach. And because for contract 81B, that's a delay, so the contractor of 810A could not go into the site, and work was delayed. And also there were unfavorable geological conditions, and the need to make corresponding changes to the design, so the works were delayed. But the works team has always been working closely with the contractors. We have added a number of workers and machinery to try to catch up on progress. Now, the MTRCL has an established procedure system to manage the performance of contractors. The government also has an independent expert panel which has affirmed the performance of the MTRCL in managing the contract. The works team will continue to work in accordance to the contract in monitoring the work of the contractors. And then we will also keep in close working relationship with the contractors. We all share the common goal, that is that we'll try our best to overcome all challenges and complete the XRL project. Now, all the contractors are doing their best to carry on the work on the Select Committee's inquiry into the reasons and background leading to the delay. I will try my best to answer your questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members.
博士，我想問一問，
Thank you, Dr. Wang. So do you officially produce your opening remarks as evidence? Yes, correct. All right. I would like to remind members, according to Clause 15 of the Practice and Procedures of the Select Committee, during open hearings, members should only ask questions for the purpose of ascertaining facts relevant to and within the scope of the Select Committee's inquiry. Members should not make comments or statements during these hearings. And in accordance with Clause 16E of the Practice and Procedures, I would decide whether a question or evidence is relevant to and within the scope of the Select Committee's inquiries, as set out in its terms of reference. And in accordance with Clause 16F of the Practice and Procedures, short follow-up questions may be allowed to seek further answers to the original question or clarifications to the answers given. And I, as the chairman, has the discretion to decide whether a question is a follow-up question and whether it should be allowed or otherwise. Also, every member will have 10 minutes to ask questions, including questions and answers and the witness's response. And the member can ask questions to one or both witnesses. So for the hearing today, I would like to ask questions on the two witnesses. According to Dr. Philco Wong's written statement, paragraphs 3 to 5, Dr. Wong joined the corporation in November 2011 as general manager for the Sha-Tin to Central Link and was appointed projects director in August 2014 to take over Mr. Chu Tai-Hong. And you were responsible to the CEO, the executive committee, and the board of the corporation for the delivery of the XRL project. Dr. Wong, I would like to ask you, as the project director, apart from what you said in your opening remarks, why were there delays, serious delays in the Hong Kong section of the XRL project? Chairman, thank you for your question. For any major infrastructure projects, they come with different requirements. For the XRL project, the terminus will be built in a very busy local area. And there are major carriages and buildings around the terminus. And for the design of the West Kowloon terminus, this is an underground station. And that makes it very difficult for the project, the building construction project. In the design of the terminus, we have been leveraging on the past experience of MTRCL. After we've come up with the design, we proceeded with the construction works. But then during the construction works, there were unforeseen circumstances, including the rock head levels and the underground rock conditions. Well, I would like to ask you, there were some 80,000 cubic meters of granite underground. Is this considered an unforeseen circumstance? Yes, 18,000 cubic meters of granite and also other unforeseen circumstances underground are major causes for the delay. Do you think the granite is in an unforeseen circumstance? we did site investigation, and the information that we got was only limited to the points of the site investigation. But actually, when we started excavation, there was some differences. So you seem to be saying that the granite is an unforeseen circumstance. Yes, during the site investigation, we could not really get a full picture of the underground condition. Apart from such unfavorable conditions in relation to the ground conditions, there were also different contracts involved in the project. So once a contract was impeded by unforeseen circumstances, there was delay, and there would be knock-on effects on other contracts. In other words, there may be delays of other contractors getting into the relevant sites, so that poses a major impact to the proceeding of the construction works. You know that the WKT is situated on a reclaimed land. There have many reclamation exercises on that piece of land. And there were many underground utilities laid there. Now, after we gained entry into the site, we found that the underground utilities were rather complicated in terms of their location. And as such, our construction works were adversely affected. Third, after we started the construction works, there was also a major external, a change in the external factors, including a shortage in construction workers. There was a tight supply of construction workers, which affected adversely the progress of the works. In accordance with paragraph 7 of your witness statement, Mr. Thomas joined the corporation in July 2011. And from April 2013 to August 2015, Mr. Lomas was the project manager, XRL Terminus Controls, reporting to the general manager, XRL Terminus. Your responsibility includes coordinating a number of different project management functions relating to the construction of the West Kowloon terminus. Mr. Lomas, I would like to ask you, can you brief this select committee on the difficulties encountered up to the April 2014, and why were there serious delays in the project?
Chairman, Dr. Wong has already spoken about some of the causes of delay on the contract. For me, I can tell you a little bit more, perhaps in detail, about the delays at the WKT site during that period. As an example, Dr. Wong spoke about utilities, and there are quite a lot of utilities around the site. It's a very old district, and there are some utilities of varying ages, conditions, joint locations, and it's not until we open the ground up that we actually know what we're dealing with. And one specific example I can give is along the south edge of Jordan Road, there was a power cable, and we needed to be able to move the power cables out of the way so that we could finish the diaphragm walls. Now, these power cables were so tight, they didn't have enough slack in them for us to be able to pull them to one side. So part of our delay there was having to excavate below a live carriageway, which took a lot of time to get permissions to do so, to enable us to free up enough slack so we could pull the cable out of the way, and we could excavate and build half a diaphragm wall panel. We were then able to slew it back in the opposite direction and build the other half of the diaphragm wall panel before we put the cable back where it belonged and backfilled the road. Now, there are a lot of examples of that sort, of the conditions that cause delay to the West Kowloon terminus.
但係呢啲會唔會係公？
Are these common problems in construction projects? You talked about cables, underground cables. Well, these should be common problems in construction projects. Why is it that at the WKT the situation is particularly difficult?
If I can just expand a little bit, the West Kowloon terminus is being built within that 11-hectare site, as Dr. Wong spoke about. It's formed from a very complex series of reclamations over a good number of years. It's almost 700 metres long from the start of the structure under 811B, north of Jordan Road, down to the south of Jordan Road, and all the way down to the diaphragm wall near Victoria Harbour. We are constructing right next to Victoria Harbour. At that point we're about 193 metres wide and we're about 30 metres deep. Now, the complexity of the site across that area means that we get a lot of different construction challenges that will occur. That includes the utilities around the sites in the existing roads and footpaths that we have to keep live during the period of construction, and we then have to reinstate once we've finished construction into the roads and the footpaths that we're building. So they, as a general term, are common construction problems, but it is such a large site and such a complex project, there are so many of them that they will cause problems. On a project of this scale and nature, these kind of problems are inevitable. And whilst we are able to overcome many of those challenges through hard work, our job as an engineer, as we've said before, is to seek solutions to challenges as they arrive. We're able to overcome many of those challenges, and Dr. Wong gave a couple of very good examples of where we've been successful in overcoming those challenges. But unfortunately, we're not able to overcome all the challenges that occur on the terminus.
Okay. Okay, got.
Thank you very much. Dr. Lo Wai-Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. I would like to follow up on what the Chairman mentioned about site investigation works and the preparatory works before the construction works. In paragraph 30 of your witness statement, you said that before construction commenced, site investigation work was carried out starting from 2008 at various stages at the WKT site. There was over 600 drill holes. And I think the Hong Kong section of the XRL was a project of unprecedented scale and complexity in Hong Kong. And this is also the world's first XRL project underground, including the terminus and the railway. They are all situated underground. So in that circumstance, advance works were shorter than expected or envisaged, 16 months short, 40% short. Is it something not very common, or were you under a lot of pressure so that you have to compress the timetable? Because there have been quite a long delay before the works commenced, so that's why you have to catch up with the lapsed time, and hence you are left with little time for doing advanced works. And also, the two witnesses today, I would like to ask you, do you agree or do you not agree that the advanced works for the Hong Kong section of the XRL was not done properly, it was inadequate, maybe it's because of time constraint? So because of that, you were having serious delays in your construction works. And also, do you, both of you, agree if there were sufficient time to do the advanced works, the construction works would have proceeded more smoothly and delays could be minimized? Dr. Wong first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Member, for the question. As far as I understand, because at the time I was not in the team. But as far as I understand, the investigation works at the time were done in accordance with the guidelines of the government. In other words, the site investigation standards, the sighting of the boring holes and the depth of investigation and so on. Well, Dr. Wong, of course, you would work in accordance with the government's requirements, but that is not really the question of Dr. Lo. He asked if there were sufficient time, would you have done a better site investigation? Now, at the time, the MTRCL understood the time frame was tight, but it was workable for the site investigation works. Now, from our past experience in railway projects, in many different projects, we always worked to a tight time frame in relation to the completion of such works. Mr. Lomas?
If I may, there have been a lot of questions, and the ground investigation has been the subject of much interest. So if it would be helpful, perhaps I can talk a little bit about the ground condition itself, and that might help you in your inquiry. As I say, it's a large site. It's a very large and complex site. The site is what some would term a brownfield site. It's had a variety of past uses, and it's been created by this complex history of reclamations, numerous reclamations over a good number of years. And this has meant that there are very many different types of ground, both soil and rock, both natural and man-made, that are to be excavated to create, as the Honourable Member set out, this largely underground facility. There are also within that then some old features, old breakwaters, old seawalls, etc., and the like within the site, some of which are expected, some of which are not expected. And there are also some other items that were not expected, such as some old abandoned utilities that we found. Now, what we have to excavate at WKT is around 3 million cubic metres of soil and rock. Now, within that 3 million cubic metres, we have 3 different types of marine mud that has to be dug out. That cannot be mixed. It all has to be disposed of individually. And we have many other naturally occurring soils over the top of the existing rock that need to be removed. Now, each of these specific different types of soils needs to be investigated quite thoroughly before it can be excavated, and it can only be excavated through a very complex series of excavation and lateral support stages, and they themselves are engineered out of a complex arrangement of the diaphragm wall or temporary pile walls, together with either large steel struts or soil berms that hold the structure in place. And this needs to be carefully evaluated at all stages to make sure that the surrounding infrastructure isn't affected by settlement, and allowing the construction works to proceed according to plan. Now, any variation in this soil characteristic, and we're taking soil samples across this 11-hectare site, any variation of the soil characteristics may affect the design of the excavation and lateral support plan, and may require us to redesign, re-evaluate it, and at times to re-execute it, or to change the methods, or to strengthen the methods as we find these unforeseen conditions as we go. And this is all part of the complexity of the site. There is then also an incredible amount of monitoring necessary to make sure that we can carry out this work safely, and it's the hard work over a good number.
Mr. Lomas, could you answer Dr. Lo's question directly? If there were sufficient, more ample time, would you have done better in terms of the site investigation? Would it have led to fewer difficulties during the work stage?
If I may, even at the spacings that we're talking about with the site investigation that we've got, as we say, it's within the industry standards, it follows the GEA norms. Even with what we have, it's at times not possible to pick up some of the complexities of the weathering or the jointing in the rock. It's just not possible. It would be wrong of me to speculate what we might have done back at that time if we had enough time.
主席，我作為專業工程師。
As a professional engineer, Mr. Chairman, investigation remains investigation. It's about collecting samples. And of course, the number of samples collected will affect one's knowledge about the ground conditions and how much details you can get on the ground conditions. But at the same time, there could still be a lot of unforeseen circumstances, because it's not possible to fully understand the ground conditions just from investigation. That I understand. Now, in the independent expert panel's report, there are a few paragraphs on the advance works, which were conducted in a very short time frame. Can I put it in another way, perhaps, to the two of you? Now, on how much time was required for the advance works, did you negotiate with the government at the time? Maybe for various reasons, eventually the advance works were compressed. But was there any discussion on the time frame? Now, since we're on the ground conditions, I have a specific question on the rock condition. Mr. Wai Chi-sing, the former director of Highways Department, in the hearing on the 2nd of June this year, he pointed out that when he was the director from April 2008 to June 2010, he knew already there was a large amount of rocks underneath the West Kowloon site, although they did not have an idea of how much. Now, can I ask you, Mr. Low, when did the MTRCL get an accurate picture of the rock condition on the ground and how much there was? And did you discuss with the Highways Department about the difficulties and the challenges and how you were going to deal with it? Could you give us some information? So there were two questions. The first one is on whether you negotiated with the government to try to get more time to do the advance works. The second question is, when did you find out about the problems related to the rock condition, and did you have any discussion with the Highways Department on how you could deal with those issues? Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the questions. On advance works, my understanding is for all the required site investigation and advance works, the works team has followed the same procedure for past railway projects. We also took in account the views of various experts and consultants, so the requirements were fully met. On the rock condition, as you know, as you would understand, by site investigation would only get an idea of the condition from a distance. Before we actually proceed with the works, it would not be possible to get an accurate picture of the rock condition. By the time we find out about the unfavorable factors for the works because of the rock ground condition, the works team has been in liaison with the government. When was it? I think the question was, when did you find out about these problems? Now, the works, I think it was about 2011, after the work started. We had regular discussions with the government on the rock condition, and then we did analysis. The early, mid, or late 2011, please, do you recall? For the WKT, I think the diaphragm wall work started in 2011. And then within the WKT, that is a contract 810A we kept referring to, that they started to go into the site at the end of 2011. Did you discuss with the Highways Department how to handle the problems? We had regular meetings with the Highways Department. We gave regular reports, and there's analysis and discussion all along. Mr. Chairman, if I may now turn to a different direction for my questions. Now, in Dr. Wong's opening remarks, he referred to the labor issue. Can Dr. Wong explain in more detail the following? After you assumed the post, you were in charge of this aspect of the work. Did you reflect to your seniors about the impact of the serious labor shortage, that it might affect the completion date? And did you talk to your seniors about how you could address this issue with concrete measures? Thank you, member, for the question. On the labor issue, that's new condition in the construction industry as a whole. This has been the case for some years. I think it was from 2001, after the major infrastructure project started. For the MTRCL, we came up with various measures to address the issue in a positive manner. I could give you some examples, especially since after I took up the post. In the MTRCL, for instance, we have held some recruitment sessions together with the Construction Industry Council. So we try to recruit workers who've switched trades, because in mid-2000, when the construction industry was not doing well, some construction workers switched to other trades, working in restaurants and so on. We try to bring them back to construction. And then for the 5 new rail lines, for the Shatin to Central Link, for instance, we required the contractor to train at least 50 new workers. So that's on-the-job training. That is hire first, train later. And so they could continue to do the works for us on site. And together with the Labour Department and the Construction Industry Council, we discussed an enhanced supplementary labour scheme. Hopefully then we could compress the time required to import workers to work on our sites. We want to attract people to join the industry. It doesn't matter if they are new to the trade or they're just coming back from other jobs. We have we provided a life insurance scheme for the construction workers. That is, if unfortunately they die on the work site or during the work during the time they work for us, they pass away from diseases, they will be covered by life insurance. This could attract more people to join our teams. Did you reflect the labor shortage problems to the board or the government? Well, there are regular reports, and in the board there were discussions. So the board was aware of it, and because we had to introduce the life insurance scheme, so they knew. Next, Deputy Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the XRL project is a major project. It was mentioned before that there could be many unexpected scenarios that came up. Two of you also mentioned, like ground conditions, labor issues, and underground utilities, traffic diversion, and so on. Well, both of you two gentlemen have rich experience in construction works. Now, for the XRL project in compiling the program, would you say that these factors have been taken into account? Of course, these factors may be too complex to be assessed accurately, but you are responsible and experienced works personnel in preparing the program. Would you have allowed some buffer periods for such works? Dr. Wong first.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Member, for your question. For any railway projects, the MTRCL has adopted our usual approach, whether it's a project by way of an entrustment agreement or past projects of MTRCL. We've been abiding by the established procedures and techniques in doing our preparatory work. In compiling the program, the works program, the MTRC does have our professional team, including the engineers, the works design team, and also experts who are well versed in drawing up works programs, and they work on the program. And we also do a risk assessment. We will look at the critical contracts in the whole project, and for these critical contracts, we do have a buffer period. So these are all drawn up in accordance with the established procedures. Now, when we have finished working on the works program, we would take it to the independent experts for them to scrutinize, and that before the works program is used as part of the tendering exercise. So to put simply, have you foreseen these unforeseen circumstances and you have built into the buffer period? Yes, for every project there is a risk assessment. Well, please give me a direct answer, yes or no. Have these been factored in your works program? For XRL project, yes. I would like to add, as I said in my opening remarks, this is a very complicated project. So does it mean that you have a long buffer period then? Well, we did encounter some unfavorable and unforeseen ground conditions. And this was not foreseen in the advanced works and the design work. You are talking about the granite. Well, other obstacles as well, and also boulders and so on. Mr. Lomas.
Following on from what Dr. Wong said, obviously I wasn't around at the time that the project program was put together, but as I understand it from the project records, we put together the construction program with the help of our external consultants, taking into account the factors that Dr. Wong has set out, and it was considered at the time that it was tight but doable, and that's the program that we set off on.
So there is indeed a buffer period, but then the works program remains tight. Is that right? Dr. Wong, perhaps? Well, you have to understand that we do have a buffer period, but is it long enough to cope with unforeseen ground conditions and the adverse impact as a result? So do you think this buffer period is tight or short? Yes, the work schedule is rather tight. Chairman, well, now that we know what the problems are, what should be the desirable buffer period? What should be sufficient? Dr. Wong first. Thank you, Chairman. Well, every project comes with its own characteristics and requirements. But for this particular project, what do you think? This is a complex project, and so in the advanced work stage, it's difficult for us to come up with a sort of desirable buffer period. Chairman, Mr. Lomas, do you have anything to add, Mr. Lomas?
When we let the tenders and we briefed our contractors on the programme as part of the tender, and as I say, I wasn't a part of the tender returns, but I understand that in each of the tender returns from the contractors, they also confirmed that the programme was achievable. And it's important to note that throughout all of this, ourselves, our team, our contractors have been using their best endeavours to overcome those challenges to that programme when they arise.
Vice Chairman, Dr. Wong said that it's difficult to give an estimate of the desirable buffer period, but I find that very strange. Going by the latest XRL program schedule, they are building in a 6-month buffer period. And we're talking about a period from now to 2018. How come that we can build a next 6-month buffer period now? And then Dr. Wong said that it was not possible to build in that period. I'm asking you this, in your personal opinion, for a very complex project as this one, what should be the ideal buffer period? We know that the target completion date is August 2015, and now it's got delayed. So without a buffer period, how did you actually draw up the works program? He's asking you on your personal and professional opinion on that. I've worked in the field for 30, 40 years for projects in Hong Kong, especially civil engineering works projects. Well, the complexity of the project differs from one to another. And we can only grasp the full complexity of the projects as we go along normally. So we only learn about certain complexities in projects as we proceed with the works. And XRL project is no exception. As I said, this is an underground project, and the ground conditions can be very complicated, and this time round, actually, for this project, the ground condition is so complex, and it has a serious impact on the works. Now, the situation is getting clearer these days, and 75% of the works have been completed now, and also the unfavorable ground conditions are getting less and less, and the excavation works have been completed by 97%. And what remains is the structural works and the superstructure installation works. Now we are in better grasp of the situation, and we can, of course, now come up with a clearer buffer period. Mr. Lomas, do you have anything to add?
What Dr. Wong has said.
Okay.
If I understand him correctly, and when the works started, it was difficult to come up with a buffer period. It will only be at a later stage when you can give us or estimate a buffer period. So it means that whatever buffer period you put in the beginning was not very meaningful. Do you agree with that saying?
正如我頭先所回答，就係喺一個項目上邊呢，我哋係即係喺個設計或者係喺前邊嗰個準備階段呢，我哋係只可以用我哋有嘅資料去即係設計嗰個項目嘅時間，緩衝期都一樣，我哋只可以用有嘅資料。如果有啲資料我哋係唔能夠係呢個可以預見嘅話，呢啲資料我哋係唔可以即係要嚟做擺一個緩衝期。
Mr. Lomas.
未撳返過嚟。Sorry.
The buffer period at the initial period, when you designed the buffer period, it was totally meaningless because you could not do give, could not estimate accurately as to the progress of the project.
Chairman, and also due to the fact actually at the beginning, actually you not have accurate information of all these uncertain issues, including those I mentioned, the underground condition, utility diversions, etc.
As you say, at the start of the contract, there are a lot of unknowns associated with the ground condition, which I've described, and until we get into that ground condition, the excavation, etc., and discover some of those unforeseen circumstances, it's difficult to ascertain the correct buffer. As Dr. Wong said a little earlier, excavation is now almost complete, and as we go to complete the excavation, the unforeseen risks associated with the ground condition diminish, and more, shall we say, accurate predictions of that buffer could be made.
So what criteria do you use to decide on the buffer period?
I believe that there are some discussions around the program to complete based on the best information we have available at the time.
Best information on what?
I'm not personally involved in putting together the recent program to complete that was put forward in June of this year, but it would include the outstanding risks, the work to complete, the issues that we're talking about, the potential labour shortages, etc.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a question for the two witnesses. From the start of works in 2010 to April 2014, have you issued any warning letters to the contractors in relation to the progress of works, reminding them that they should complete their works on time? Have you carried out any other measures to help contractors to recover the delays? Have you penalized them for works not satisfactorily completed? Dr. Wong. Thank you, Chairman. The MTRCL has an established system in managing contractors. The government has engaged the IEP, who has affirmed the performance of MTRCL in managing our contractors. And we are managing the contractors in accordance with our contractual requirements to ensure that they discharge their duties properly under the contracts, and we are continuing to do that. The contractors and the MTRCL share this common goal, and that is to take forward the works. And if we encounter any challenges in the course of works, we would study together the mitigation measures to recover the delays. Chairman, there are so many contracts involved. Have they ever issued warning letters or penalized the contractors for not completing their works on time? Dr. Wong, with respect to project management, we hold meetings with the contractors and we discuss with them the progress of works. And if needed, yes or no? Do you recall? Yes or no? Sorry, Chairman. I was not on the project team at that time, so I could only speak on what I understand. And if needed, we would issue letters to the contractors to urge them to discharge their contractual requirements. Can you go back and check and then give us a written reply? Yes, that can be done. Chairman, I have another question too. For the IEP report, paragraph 2.12, it is as stated that for the WKT design, there have been some significant changes to the design of the WKT. Do you think Dr. Wong is one of the main reasons for causing the delay? And And for the revision of the designs and the impact on the works progress, are you aware of that, Dr. Wong? The steel structure for the WKT in the design actually was set out in the early stage, including its dimensions, its height, the steel structure design, and so on. But then, during the course of the works, there were unfavorable conditions, ground conditions. These are unforeseen. So the design of the temporary works has to be revised. We need some struts to support the temporary works, and there have been changes made. So can I defer to Mr. Lomas to supplement on the details relating to the design? Mr. Lomas, please.
It's not unusual for contracts of this size, this complexity, this nature to be tendered out once the design has reached a certain level of maturity, and design changes during construction are to be expected. It does have design changes, but I'd like to highlight that some of the design changes, as we've set out before, are minor in nature and as a result of corrections, amendments, etc. Some of the more significant ones that you may be interested in are not perhaps a cause of delay themselves, but they are the design changes for the delay recovery measures designed to mitigate that delay. Now, earlier Dr. Wong gave the example of the Jordan Road Southern Flip, and that in itself as a delay recovery measure was a design change. It involved a lot of negotiation and discussion, a lot of options, a lot of design, and a lot of redesign and new drawings. But not only did the Jordan Road South Flip itself constitute a design change and mitigate the delay, but also the changes to the diaphragm wall works themselves that it gave access to. There was also a design change necessary in there. So these are the sort of things where we have issued design changes that are not causes of delay but are designed to catch up delay themselves, and there are many other examples of this nature.
主席，因為時間問題，我想問下黃博士嗰個即係直接啲。
Well, to save time, can I ask Dr. Wong directly? Did the changes lead to the project delay? Was that one of the reasons, or was the design to speed up the project rather? The changes are just amendments to the design. It's in response to the unforeseen ground conditions. So some of the temporary support structures have to be revised in terms of design. Of course, they will affect the progress, but we try to use the DRM mesh to keep up. Now, did the changes cause to the lengthening of the program? Yes, in some ways. Mr. Wuchiwai? Well, I will try to give ask short questions. I want short answers. Paragraph 96 of the IEP report says that there's an overall project program suggested, but the MTRCL refused to do it. And then the IEP said that the MTRCL does not have a master program. So it's not possible for different parties to monitor the progress, and that's a critical factor too. So my question is, does the MTRCL have a master program for the whole project? If so, did you ever submit this master program to the Highways Department? If so, when did you submit it? I want to know the time. And if you did not submit such a program, why not? And can I ask the Highways Department whether the Highways Department ever requested the MTRCL to provide an integrated master program for the whole project? Dr. Wong. In the management of railway projects, past projects, and this project, the approach has been the same. We regularly compile a PNP, Project Master Program. This Project Master Program is developed by the software P6. So we put together the programs of the various contracts, and then we come up with the PMP. In 2011, the PMP was ready. And together with the M&V consultant of the government, we reviewed the PMP and we took on board some of the views. The PMP is regularly reviewed. That's been practiced all over the years. The PMP that I just referred to is done in the same format as the integrated master program mentioned in the IEP report. Now, on a railway project, there are 4 parts of work in relation to the PMP, and they all required in completing a railway project. A railway project is not the same as other infrastructure projects such as the Qingman Bridge or a large water treatment plants, sewage treatment plants. Well, that's different. Now, we need to have 4 parts in a railway project. The first is tunneling, building stations, and so on. And, of course, second part is track laying. And after laying track, we have to supply electricity, signaling, and so on. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, if I may stop the witness here. I follow what you're saying, but my question is, whether it's the PMP or whether it's called the Integrated Master Program, in this particular document, the information in this document, are you saying that the M&V consultant and the Highways Department have access to this program? Or is it, as you just put it, at the beginning of the work, so there was an agreement, so there was an agreed approach, and then afterwards, because from the IEP report, it seems that the government did not have the information afterwards. Otherwise, it wouldn't say here there is an absence of an integrated master program. That's in para 3.23 of the IEP report. So that for the various parties not able to follow the progress, and which is critical. Can you comment on this particular point? For the PMP, our PMP, in fact, in February 2011 already, together with the M&V consultant of the government, we vetted the PMP that I referred to. And at our meetings, we revised the PMP as a result of our discussions. In December that year, and subsequently at other vetting meetings, we submitted and discussed the PMP. Dr. Wong, so does it mean that you don't agree to the observation made by the IEP on this particular issue? For all information, there's a record of it. Perhaps we could submit it to the Secretariat. Can I follow up on one point. Now, what Dr. Wong said, and then on the 10th of November 2015, when we had Mr. Anthony J.W. King, of Jacobs, the M&V consultant, he said something different, because at the inquiry he said,
we saw it sometimes audits when it was tabled was never released to us for reasons that MTRCL may tell you. 我想問你嘅意思係咪即係
So are you saying every time it's a tabled document, you had a discussion, but he said it was never released to them? So from what I understand, that means that Jacobs, the M&V consultant, never got a copy which they could then study in detail after the meeting. Maybe it was the agreed arrangement, but then and then you agreed on to do something, but then the paper was only just tabled. Can I confirm that's the case? And then Anthony J.W. King, Jacobs, the consultant, are you saying he's lying, or he said something wrong? Now, on what the Jacobs consultant said, I wouldn't comment on it. But from my record in 2011, through the Highways Department, or rather we submitted a copy of the PMP to Highways Department. Mr. Chairman, I have to clarify this point. The IEP report stated clearly it's because there is an absence of an integrated master program, unless this integrated master program is something different than your PMP. Otherwise, that's what the IEP said in this report. And you said that the Highways Department's got a copy. Jacobs also got a copy. So in other words, So that means that it's the other two parties who were in dereliction of duties because they did have the master program to assess the progress or whatever. Dr. Wong? Mr. Chairman, the MTRCL did compile the PMP is in our record. It was ready in 2011. Our PMP, compared to the master program mentioned in paragraph 7.6 of the IEP report, is similar, although it's named differently. And that's why I tried to explain just now there are four principal parts of a railway project. I mentioned three already. And in our record, the PMP was compiled in 2011. It was submitted to the Highways Department. Now, on the question of the PMP, can I ask the MTRCL to go back and prepare a detailed list or table? That is, under what circumstances or on what occasions did you submit the PMP? You said there were every time there in the meeting there's a part on the PMP. So can you give us a detailed list at which meeting you submitted, you provided the paper, and who were present at the meeting, in which department and so on? Then we could trace how much information the government or Jacobs had on the PMP. Yes, we can provide information to the Secretariat. Thank you. Mr. Wuchiwai, thank you. My other question. The M&V consultant, Jacobs, when they asked for the reference report from the MTRCL, would you always accede to their request? Because they represent the Highways Department. Would you have to first ask the Highways Department to make the request on behalf of the M&V consultant Jacobs before you would accede to the request? Dr. Wong? It's for the Highways Department to make arrangements. That is, if we submit papers, we submit to Highways Department, and the Highways Department pass it on to the M&V consultant. Would you do any screening when there's a request for information? Did the MTRCL do any screening? My understanding is for the information, it's all kept in a computer program, a computer folder. The M&V consultant could read the information anytime. You mean the M&V consultant has access to your computer works program to check on information in relation to the progress of the works, while apart from keeping the information in our computer system, copies of detailed information are submitted to the Highways Department, and it's up to the Highways Department how they handle the documents in relation to the M&V consultant.
So I hope that you can come up with a separate checklist listing out all the copies of documents that you have submitted to the Highways Department. This is different from what we understand all along. Whether it's Jacobs and Highways Department, whenever they sought information from you, there was always a time delay. So can you come up with a checklist of the copies of documents you submitted to the Highways Department at different meetings? Can you give us that list? Yes, we will submit the information to the Secretariat. Also, when Highways Department and the MMV consultant were seeking information from MTRCL, can you confirm that there was no time delay? Because you said just now that the information was already at the computer system and they could access it. With regard to the progress of works, we hold regular meetings with the Highways Department to discuss the progress. If the Highways Department and MMV consultant would like to seek further information from us, of course, we needed time to prepare such information, and there might be a time gap. Well, can you tell us normally how long would it take you to prepare the documents? Well, I think it depends on the kind of information requested. Well, he already said that he would provide us with a list of information or papers. I don't think you should follow up further. All right, I'll wait for the document from them before I pursue this further. Chairman, I have another follow-up. Mr. Henry Chan, the former Highways Department Director, up to April 2014, although there were many challenges, the MTRCL gave undertaking to the government that the target completion time in 2015 is still achievable. And in his statement, paragraph 43 to 69, now there were delays to the WKT and also the 8 contracts, and also relocating the underground utilities took time and may cause delays as well. Since the MTRCL knew that there were so many challenges, how come that still at April 2014, the MTRCL was still saying to the government that the works could be completed on schedule? Second, the LegCo has been receiving half-yearly report from the MTRCL. We did that through the subcommittee on issues relating to railway. But so far, we've never seen any documents telling us the problems or difficulties encountered. From paragraph 43 to 69, Dr. Wong, you have set out the difficulties in the project. How come that these difficulties were not listed in the half-yearly progress report submitted to the LegCo? Thank you, Dr. Wong. Thank you. As I said in the beginning, we face a number of challenges in the XRL projects. When the project team encountered such challenges, we, of course, had to come up with solutions to overcome them. And we came up with delay recovery measures to try to catch up or recover the delays. To my understanding, the mitigation measures were actually reported in or outlined in our progress reports. And these mitigation measures were also vetted by our project control group and also vetted by the government. The mitigation measures will also be included in the contract, subject to monitoring by our project team. From January 2011 to June 2013, there were 7.5 progress reports submitted to us. Now, the delays were getting worse as time went by. So according to what Dr. Wong said, for these 7 reports submitted between 2011 and June 2013, no mention was made of the risks encountered and also the challenges encountered. Do you think the reports are in order, if that is the case? And in paragraph 8 of your statement, you said that since the commencement of the project, we're still facing serious challenges and serious delays. On the one hand, you faced a lot of difficulties, and also you were incurring long delays. Of course, you've done a lot to recover the delays, but the difficulties were still there. Why was it that no such mentioning was made on these difficulties in the reports? Now, in the hearing, you mentioned a number of difficulties, labor shortage, ground conditions, etc., etc. Why were these difficulties not mentioned in the half-yearly reports, progress reports? Thank you, Chairman, for the question. For the IBC, they think that the MTRCL and the government were working together to try to recover the delays, and actually they have reported the fact, truly the situation to the electrical. And the government was also monitoring all the documents related to the progress of works and costs and so on. The IBC believed that the MTRCL and the associated stakeholders in their reporting of the progress of works, they were complying with the second entrustment agreement. For the half-yearly, quarterly, progress reports, were they compiled by the MTRCL? When these reports were drawn up during that period, were the difficulties there? Did the MTRCL take part in drafting the half-yearly progress report? That the report should be submitted to the Railway Subcommittee of the Electrical. It was compiled by the RDO of the MTRCL. So MTRCL did take part in drafting the report. Yes, if you are referring to the report submitted to the Railway Subcommittee. Yes. Next one. Mr. Chan Kam Lam. In the reports submitted by the MTRCL to the government, you didn't mention about these causes for the delays, as you set out in 2014. Were you deliberately covering up the facts? You tried to give the impression that works were proceeding as scheduled. And would you have misled the government? Dr. Wong. Yes, Dr. Wong, please. Thank you, Chairman. MTRCL was not trying to cover up the progress of works. the IBC report and the IEP report both said that they do not believe that the MTRCL or the government were doing any cover-up. Chairman, in his earlier answer, he mentioned about labor shortage, and the witness said that they were making applications under the supplementary labor scheme and they were conducting training for workers. So I would like to ask, are these measures undertaken by MTRCL or the contractors? How many workers have been imported to make up the shortfall of the manpower, and how many applications or how many workers have been approved by the government? Where did you get the workers from? Dr. Wang, thank you, Chairman and Member, for your question. On the question of supplementary labor scheme, it was the contractors who applied for the import. Of course, we gave them assistance. In the approval process, the Labour Department would also consult us on the trades for the workers and the parts of the projects that they would be involved in. We have been able to import some tunnel workers so far. There are two batches. The first batch is 300. They've already done their work and they've left. And then there is another batch, 200. And also track workers, 50 of them. And also EMM workers, lift installation workers, around 40 odd. All these are imported under the supplementary labor scheme. The major sources of labor from the mainland mainly, some from Taiwan as well. I would like to follow up. How many recruitment exercises have you conducted? Recruitment fairs. If I remember correctly, around 3. Which year do you remember? Starting from 2012 up to 2014 last year. Chairman, since the witness said that they've been able to import workers under the supplementary labor scheme, and they started doing that in 2012. If that is the case, why is there still a shortage of workers? And you also said that the workers are 20% short. This is quite a substantial amount, I would say. So can you tell us whether you have underestimated the manpower needed and you needed more than envisaged? The government has acceded to your applications to import labor. If that is the case, why is there a shortage of workers by 20%? Well, perhaps I would have to make myself clearer. The tunnel workers, the first batch 300, second batch 200. They include the cross-boundary tunnels works from Shenzhen. The mainland contractors have to start working on the tunnel from the mainland side and then work towards Hong Kong. So they have to use mainland workers. And when they get to the part where it is located in Hong Kong, they have to use workers under the supplementary labor scheme. Now, apart from that, the number of workers imported is not that big. We now have some 5,000 workers working on the project, and around only 150 of them are from the supplementary labor scheme. Now, we are seeing a shortage of workers in the market. Before the work started, this is something quite unforeseen, and the situation was deteriorating because there have been prolonged work periods for many infrastructure projects. So the workers' demand have escalated at certain times. So this was something quite unexpected. Of course, we will continue to work with the contractors to bring in more workers under the SLS.
Yes, it's true there is a shortage of labor on the whole. But the thing is, you're still able to apply for enough workers. Whatever you apply for, you always get. And then in your statement, paragraph 56, you say there's a serious shortage of skilled worker and frontline supervision. Now, under the circumstance, well, you said you've applied for supplementary labor. Wouldn't that have eased the shortage? The shortage should have been eased. And then you said it led to has caused or contributed to production rates falling short of program plans across many of the contracts. Well, to us outsiders, we don't see that to be a sufficient reason. I wonder if there are other reasons. Can you explain, please? Dr. Wong? I have some recent figures. The workers we need, it's true there's a shortage. Take the last few months as an example. We have a shortage about 6 to 8%, about 300 odd workers for the XRL project. You must understand, members, it takes time to apply under the SLS. From the time of submitting an application to it being granted, it may take 6 to 8 months. Sometimes, actually, that causes a problem in terms of our work's progress. So therefore, labor shortage continues to affect the works. Yes, the application takes time. So where does the problem lie? With the government, Labor Department, or barriers imposed by the policy, or what? There is an established time frame for the application process and the various stages. To give you more details, say if we need workers of in a particular trade, we first need to make the application, and then we have to try to recruit locally. If we fail, then we have to propose the wages or the works arrangement for the required imported labor. So the whole process takes some time. Last year, together with the Labor Department, we've enhanced the process. So we've managed to streamline the process, and we're able to shorten the time frame a bit. Still, it takes time. For example, we have to go through the immigration procedures and so on. The witness said it was only last year that you worked with a government department to enhance the procedure. How come you didn't do it before 2012 or 2014? Did you ever suggest it before? Or was it the case that the government insisted on its own approach? Yes, I'd like to know why too, Dr. Wong. My understanding is there's been discussion with the relevant government department all along, but then of course there are different stakeholders, and there may be differences in opinion, and so we've been working on it. That's why it's only in 2014, early 2014, that the procedure was enhanced. Didn't the Highways Department have to responsibility to help you enhance this process? Well, the Highways Department has helped us to liaise with other government departments and stakeholders. So it didn't work? Oh, it worked. As I said, in 2014, when the MTRCL applied under the SRL, the process was already shortened. But then you started experiencing labor shortage in 2011. It was only in 2014 that there was this enhanced procedure. So did the whole system fail? I mean, the role played by the Highways Department in liaising and coordinating with other government departments, has that role failed? From what I recall and from what I understand, Apart from the supplementary labor scheme, there are other relevant government departments, such as the Construction Industry Council. Everyone has a different approach in dealing with the labor shortage, so everybody has done a lot. My last question, Mr. Chairman. After the enhancement of the scheme, how long does it take to complete each application? Well, each case is different, maybe 5 to 6 months. Mr. Chairman, so we're just trying to compare the situation before and after the enhancement. Well, let's take a 10-minute break, 10-minute break. We'll come back at 11:15. The next member to ask questions would be Mr. Gary Fan.